Okay, so you know how everyone's talking about SEO and AI these days. It can be tough to cut through all the noise and figure out what really matters, right? And that's kind of what we're going to dive into today.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like every day there's some new trend or supposed secret, but how do you actually know what works? Especially in the real world. So today we're going to get into some real specifics, ditch the vague theories and look at what someone actually did to boost their content.
Right, so we're going to break down how this guy, Dan Sasser, took his content's EEAT score.
You know, that measure of like expertise and all that good stuff.
Exactly, from like the
Oh,
60s to an 82. Yeah, 82.
It's a huge jump.
Huge jump.
Yeah.
So we've got his article, he wrote about his whole process, plus some of his like notes and drafts. And what we really want to focus on is not just what he did, but how his background played into this. Because it's a pretty unique story.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So let's talk about Dan Sasser. He's not your typical SEO guru, just blogging away. The guy has serious tech chops.
Oh, yeah.
Over 20 years in software, systems, infrastructure, development, the whole nine yards. Like, he was leading projects to build those delivery tracking systems, the ones you still use today.
Ah, interesting.
So he's coming from this place of deep understanding of how complex systems really work.
Right. So he's not just some content creator. He actually knows how things are built from the ground up, like how data moves, all of that. It sounds like he was quietly working behind the scenes for years, making things happen for other people.
Yeah, and that makes his move even more interesting. He's now launching his own startup, Garambo. It's all about AI-assisted workflows, safety education, software integration, pretty cutting-edge stuff, launching this summer.
Wow. Okay.
And to really make this work, to get Garambo off the ground, he had to step out from behind the curtain, establish himself as a real authority in the field. You know, someone who knows AI and how all this digital stuff works.
Makes sense.
Eh.
I mean, to launch a platform like that, you need credibility. People need to trust you. And he didn't outsource his SEO or anything. He took it on himself. Why'd he do that?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. He basically said, I wanted to prove that my instincts, experience, and understanding of how AI works and how search engines think could lead to a scalable, future-ready SEO framework. So it wasn't about rankings for him, it was deeper than that. He wanted to prove that his understanding of these complex systems could translate into real results.
Huh. So it was almost like a personal challenge to show that his background, this technical expertise, could give him an edge in the world of SEO and AI. He's turning that technical pass into a strategic advantage.
Exactly. Now, he talks a lot about his EEAT score, which stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness.
Right, which is basically what Google's algorithms look for to see how valuable and reliable your content is, right?
Right. So EAT basically shows Google and everyone else that your content is created by someone who knows their stuff, has real-world experience, is recognized as an expert, and can be trusted.
Yeah, makes sense. Especially with all this AI-generated content popping up, you really need to stand out as a real human expert. So he started with a score around 60, which seems a little surprising considering his background.
Yeah, you'd think with all his experience, he'd be higher, right? But it kind of shows that even if you have the knowledge, you need to present it in a way that Google and your audience can clearly see and trust. There was a disconnect between his expertise and how it was coming across online.
Got it. Okay, so he mentioned he used tools to help him analyze his content, but he didn't want to name them publicly, saying he was more focused on his gut instinct. What's that about?
Well, I think it highlights that tools are great, but they shouldn't replace your own understanding and strategy. He used them as a way to test and refine his own ideas, not to blindly follow every suggestion. And here's the key thing. He really dove deep into Google's guidelines on EET. So he wasn't just relying on tools, he was developing a solid understanding of the core principles.
So it's not just about the tools, it's about the knowledge behind them.
Exactly. So after all this, he realized there were some things missing in his content, some areas where he could better showcase his expertise.
Okay, so what were those missing pieces?
Well, first off, most of his articles didn't have author sections, where he could highlight his credentials and build that personal connection. His FAQ sections were either missing, too generic, or not properly connected to what's called schema markup.
Schema markup, just for our listeners, is like adding extra labels to your content so Google understands it better.
Well, yeah, like
Yeah.
giving them context. And he wasn't really using citations to back up his points, even though he was drawing on all this technical knowledge.
Mm.
Internal linking, which is super important for SEO, was underutilized. His metadata, the titles and descriptions you see in search result, was pretty basic. And his alt text, which is the text that describes images, wasn't very descriptive or keyword focused.
So he wasn't really doing the little things that make a big difference.
Right. And it wasn't just about the words. Visually, his content was pretty basic. He wasn't using infographics or other engaging visuals to highlight his expertise. And while his writing had a knowledgeable tone, it wasn't really backed up by trust signals.
Okay, so the core knowledge was there, but it wasn't being presented in a way that really conveyed his expertise or built trust. So what did he do to fix all this?
He got really systematic about it, like a true engineer. For author attribution, he added consistent author boxes across his site, not just with his name, but with contact info, links to his projects, and a link to his detailed about page.
So basically making it super easy to verify his expertise.
Exactly. And he's even planning to automate this across his whole site, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great tip for our listeners. If you want people to see your expertise, make sure your credentials are easy to find. What else did he do?
Well, he made his content more readable by using shorter paragraphs, adding clear transitions, and really structuring his headings in a logical way. This all comes from his background in system design, understanding how to present information clearly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. He also improved his FAQs and connected them to dynamic schema, which changes based on the content, making it even easier for Google to understand. And his clarity scores shot up after that, showing how technical optimization can really make you seem more credible.
So he wasn't just randomly throwing keywords around. He was strategically using these technical elements to boost his authority.
Right. And his internal linking became way more strategic. He started using really descriptive anchor text to link related content, which helps users and tells Google about the depth of his knowledge. He also optimized his metadata and alt text, basically making it easier for people to find his content and understand what it's about.
So a very methodical approach. What about using visuals and other types of content?
Yeah, so he started planning infographics and other visuals to really highlight his expertise and the data behind his points. He also started embedding audio and video podcasts, understanding that different people learn in different ways.
Right, offering more ways to engage with his content. That in itself shows a deeper understanding of how to communicate effectively.
Absolutely. And he didn't forget about his older content. He went back and updated it with clear calls to action, links to his new Grombo venture, social sharing buttons, and he totally revamped the navigation on his site, adding breadcrumbs, mobile optimization, an easy contact form, all those things that make a website more user-friendly.
So basically transforming his website from a static collection of articles into a dynamic, interconnected hub of expertise.
Exactly. And this all ties back to his developer background, understanding how to create seamless digital experiences.
Now, one of the most interesting things he talks about is using AI not just as a tool, but as a business partner. How did he do that in a way that enhanced his own expertise?
This is really key. He didn't just use AI to churn out generic content. He used it to brainstorm ideas, organize his thoughts, create visuals, proofread his writing, and even test different writing styles.
So he's using AI to amplify his own thinking, not replace it.
Right. He calls AI a multiplier for thought leadership. And this approach has led him to start consulting on AI strategy and visibility, which further establishes his expertise. He's even developing a process to help AI find you online, although the specifics of that are for his subscribers.
So he turned his experiment into a whole new area of expertise. That's
Neat.
pretty impressive. So after all this work and strategic use of AI, what happened to his EAT score?
Well, he went from the 60s to an 82, putting him in the high authority category.
Wow, that's a huge improvement. And he did it without any of those shady SEO tactics that ultimately backfire.
Right. No keyword stuffing, no buying backlinks, no relying on paid ads for a temporary boost. He did it by focusing on quality, expertise, and building genuine trust signals, both for search engines and for real people.
So he basically created a sustainable long-term strategy that's rooted in real expertise.
Exactly. And he's not stopping there. He's constantly refining his approach, working on his FAQ schema, metadata, alt text, visuals, and making sure his content stays fresh and relevant. He sees this as a dynamic process, constantly evolving and adapting.
He calls his article a transition marker, marking a shift from code to to clarity. What does he mean by that?
It signifies his move from being primarily a back-end developer to someone who's building frameworks for AI-assisted visibility and content strategy. He's gone from writing code to creating clear, accessible content that showcases expertise and builds trust.
So he's using his technical skills in a whole new way.
Yeah, and he wants to help others do the same. He's positioning himself as someone who can provide real, practical SEO advice beyond all the hype and quick fixes.
So what are the key takeaways for our listeners? What can they learn from Dan Sasser's journey?
I think the biggest takeaway is that a strong background, combined with a strategic understanding of SEO and a smart partnership with AI, can make a huge difference in your content's authority. Dan's success wasn't about tricks or shortcuts. It was about leveraging his expertise, addressing his weaknesses, and building genuine trust.
Right. And it shows that your background, whatever it is, can be a huge asset. Dan's 20 years in tech weren't just a side note. They were the foundation of his success. It's not about chasing trends. It's about understanding how systems work, whether it's software or search engines.
Exactly. And this brings us to a final thought for our listeners. Dan Sasser took his deep technical knowledge and applied it to SEO and AI. What unique skills and experiences do you have that you can leverage to stand out in the digital world? What's your code to clarity story waiting to be told? That's something to think about.
That's a great question. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Dan Sasser's journey. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Now go out there and explore how your own expertise can shape your success online.
Absolutely. Good luck.
See you next time.